Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside Voices First Takes, where we review a film we've just come out from having seen in the theaters. As always, I'm your host, Adam Rubin, and joining me this week is...
Mr. Incredible, Colin Binning himself.
Mr. Something, Colin Binning himself. Yes, and giving it away, the movie we've just come back from the theaters having seen is The Incredibles 2.
Combustion imminent? What does that mean? Ah!
It means fire, Robert.
Really, what that means is Fantastic Four, too, because we all know what this franchise really is.
Well, in that case, it would have to be Fantastic Five, which would have worked as a title and a concept. Yes. I would go see it just as well. Colin, first of all, most pressing question, did you have high school flashbacks when you saw this movie? Because the last time you saw an Incredibles movie in a theater was back in the day.
Was right in between freshman and sophomore year, I believe, back in the day. Yeah. No, I was a little nostalgic. I'll be honest. I didn't go back to seeing it when I was 14. I didn't have flashbacks of then, but just seeing the characters again, I'm like, oh, I miss them. I do miss them back in the day, when they first came out. So I kind of had that kind of flashback.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
All right.
In a good way? I mean, it sounds positive the way you say it. Was it a nice nostalgic feeling, or was it like, oh man, 14 years, let's go already?
Well, okay, so I will say going in, I was very optimistic, but I was also nervous because of all the Pixar movies, The Incredibles was the one designed the most to get a sequel. It was made for a sequel. It ended with the whole ultimate kind of what up in the air moment to okay, to be continued, obviously. And then it never happened for a long time. So I was like, what are they doing at Pixar? We get 2 extra Cars movies, but where's Incredibles 2? you know? So yes. I was like, okay, well, if it's gonna happen, it better be good. It's 14 years. And first impression, it is worth the wait. I think it hit the mark exactly. If it didn't quite hit the highs, the ultimate highs of part 1, it is just a half a notch below it. So I was happy when I saw the movie.
Well, I will tell you that I was also happy when I saw this movie, but I really, really want to back away from describing it in terms of it was worth the wait. Because I think that's just too much pressure to put on the movie. Go see it because it's a fun, good movie. Don't think about it as have they been working on this for 14 years? I think that's just a little too much. It's very solid. I think that dwelling on how long it took to do it does the movie a disservice, which I have to say is why my first gripe is before the movie actually begins, there was basically an apology from the cast and the director / screenwriter of the movie.
Okay, yes, I know what you're talking about, that little intro thing, but Disney has...
For those people watching us who haven't seen it yet, there's a little intro where they're apologizing for the fact that we know it's been 14 years, but it's a lot of work that goes into this thing. You got to write it, you got to do all this, but we know it's going to be worth it and you're going to enjoy it. And I thought that was not necessary build-up for this thing.
Listen, though, that moment you're talking about, Disney or Pixar, maybe both, they've been doing those little intro clips for a while. It's not, they just didn't do that for Incredibles 2. That was done for Inside Out when it came out. I'm sure when Finding Dory came out. That's not something that they just made for Incredibles 2 to apologize.
I understand. But using that opportunity to basically apologize, I get why they did it. I do understand it. I just think it does a little bit of a disservice to the movie. And also, it's very, very, just a personal thing, it was very distracting to see the actors not as their characters right before the movie. Maybe it's me.
Really?
That was just thing. That was a little distracting. I'm not factoring that into my review of the movie. I'm just saying for me personally, I don't like to talk about this in terms of it was worth the wait. Forget about the wait. The movie's here now. Should they go see it, Colin? Yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely. They should go see it. Yeah.
Absolutely,
But also, could this movie have been made 4 years earlier? Yeah, I think it could have. I'll say it.
We're letting that go. Let go of the fact that the movie could have been. It didn't take them 14 years to make the movie.
I know.
But the movie is very good, and we both agree. Definitely go see it. You know the franchise. You know who these characters are. If you need to go watch the first one again to refresh your memory, go do it. I would say it's not necessary. I think they walk you through what you need to know. I really don't think you need anything from movie 1 to get movie 2. But
given that movie 2 literally picks up at movie 1's end, you kind of at least have to watch the last 5 minutes of movie 1.
I don't think you need it. I think it's self-explanatory. It picks up with an action scene, and I think you can get it without going back and be like, oh yeah, what prompted this action scene? It's self-explanatory. Either way, go watch 1, don't go watch 1, but definitely go see 2. All right? Go check it out, and then after you've seen it in theaters, definitely one for the theaters. Did you see it in 3D, Colin?
Yes, I did.
And was it worth seeing in 3D? Worth the upcharge?
Yeah, it looked fine to me. I don't know if you have to go see it.
There you have it, folks. It looked fine to him.
I don't know if you would have to. If you want to, I can tell you the 3D, it was seamless. It worked well, but I don't think it's necessary for sure.
Okay, so not necessary to see it in 3D. I will vouch for that. I saw it in 2D. Very much enjoyed my 2D experience. Didn't feel like I was missing out.
Yeah.
But either way you see it, excuse me, either way you see it, go see it, and then come back and we'll talk about spoilers and get really deep into the nitty gritty. So, Colin, all out on the table. Good. I agree with you. Did not, for me, quite hit the peaks that the first movie hit. And I do think that's to be expected. It would have been very hard to have been really as good as the first one because the first one set the bar so high.
Well, I mean, let me rephrase that a little bit. I think it did. Mm-hmm. At times, it did reach the peaks of 1. I just didn't think it did as much, and especially in the third act. The third act of Incredibles 1, when the thing's in the city and everybody's fighting it, it's so gorgeously beautiful, the animation and just how the family works together with their different powers together for the first time. It's such a beautiful culmination of what the movie has provided up to that point. And Incredibles 2 climax, I just felt was not as exciting, I guess, or not as engaging with it's a boat headed to the city. That's not as cool or as a chance to use everyone's powers as much as like a big robot going through the city. You know, that's a little bit cool and more animation wise, I guess. A boat going to the city. I've seen that before in other movies, you know, whatever.
Speed 2, I assume you're referring to.
Well, yeah, Speed 2.
One of the many Speed 2 influences on this movie, I would say.
No, but I thought, obviously, instead of, the dad, Mr. Incredible, doing the hero work and the mom staying home for a bit, they switch it up, which I thought was a nice twist, nice invertedness of the first movie, and it worked well, I thought. The villain, just like the first one, I liked the villain. The villain had a good point and a good motivation, and if not quite as memorable as Syndrome, because Syndrome actually got to have mechanical, powers and a super suit, whereas this person just has really cool technology and is a normal human, though. Her point of view and her purpose, I totally liked. I totally liked the idea behind what she was doing, I have to say. What about you?
You did.
The idea of too much relying on superheroes and not using your own responsibility, I thought was actually a very good message. You can't rely on somebody else always to save you. You have to save yourself. Like what happened to her parents were they could have gone to a panic room, but they were reliant on superheroes to save them. That's not a good way to rely on in life. So I liked it. I liked the message there. You can't rely only on superheroes. I liked it.
Okay, and that message I agree with, but I would argue that the how that message motivates the villain's actual behavior and actions in this movie is not as strong as Syndrome's motivations. Syndrome, it was very clear how what Syndrome was doing was going to accomplish his goal. By making everyone have superhero abilities, no one would be special, nobody would be left out, everything would be fair and even. And superheroism wouldn't mean as much. It was very clear how that would come to pass. It's less clear to me how banning superheroes forever will make people more self-reliant if having had them banned for the last 15 years hasn't done it. So I'm totally willing to, before I get too crazy about this, I'm absolutely willing to overlook it because there's so much more in this movie. Like I'll give it a pass, but it definitely didn't get bonus points for being strong. Like it was fine. It was passable as motivation. Like certainly her personal motivation resonates. The fact that she blames superheroes for the death of her parents, that resonates. But the idea of now she's going about this elaborate plan somehow to get people to be more self-reliant, I don't buy that. I think it's just pure revenge against superheroes.
We have to remember it was more her brother's idea to try to get supers back, and when she figured that out, she was like, "Well, I can try to use this in order to use my message." I don't think it was her idea to like bring the supers back at all.
But no, I agree.
Once her brother was committed to that, then it's like, okay, how can I undermine it and subterfuge, and then actually as they come to light, show how bad they are by mind controlling them, and then that'll permanently ban super. I guess the law in the Incredibles universe isn't necessarily a full on permanent law. I guess
that's the thing. Like it definitely was a law. They say over and over it's against the law, so the law has been passed. And again, this is a super minor gripe, but the way that they unpass the law at the end is that a judge just says they're legal now, as opposed to the treaty that we saw them sign. So why is there a judge going like, "Oh, good news! In light of your exceptional contribution to the city, they're now legalized"? No, it's because you passed a law that said they're legalized.
I think the treaty has to be approved by a judge.
Listen. Why would a treaty have to be approved by a judge? What kind of civics message is this teaching the children, Colin? Again, totally willing to overlook that, but weird. Also weird.
If you are hoping to get a legal lesson from an Incredibles movie, you are barking up the wrong tree.
I expect the very best from Pixar. What are we teaching our children?
We're teaching
about the legal process in this country.
We're teaching them laws are odd. Laws are hard to understand, which is accurate. So therefore, they've done something right.
Fair enough. They did make a congressional joke in this movie. I didn't pull this out of left field like they can make reference to politics. They do say on the radio, they were saying like, "Oh yeah, people don't trust Congress to do anything."
Yeah. Very topical.
So I'm not the one introducing politics into the Incredibles universe. Just to be clear.
What do you think of what do you think of? First of all, let's talk about Jack. Since Jack kind of steals the show, wants to field everything he can do. What'd you like about him?
Everything about Jack was adorable. Of course, my favorite scene is him and Edna bonding and the two of them just meshing with one another so well. Yeah. Best part of the movie always is. Edna's the best part of the first movie. You can't beat it. You cannot beat those scenes. Just adorable from top to bottom. I even liked the metaphor of it, that babies are full of potential and they haven't settled into one thing. I could even go for that. Was very cool.
Yeah.
And I thought, worked reasonably well within even the context of the story and the first story. Yeah, delightful. He delightful the way that he causes mischief, delightful the way that he winds up helping ultimately. I fully endorse 10 out of 10 the use and development of Jack.
Very good. Yeah, I'm totally in agreement.
I thought I'd get tired of him. Did not at all. Loved him.
Well, I was worried too. Like he would become he would have basically any power ever, like that could just easily solve any situation, which would kind of be like a cop out. But no, they introduced like I said, like what they say, 17. There's 17, and they did not like add one at the very end to be like, oh no, 18 just to solve this moment. No, I like they were at least mostly consistent with the powers that we had seen before at the end of Incredibles 1 carried over into Incredibles 2 with just a couple new ones. So I appreciate
except the one time when it's like, oh, it can be, is when he suddenly is a giant baby. The one time where and he crushes them. It's like, oh, that's convenient. We never saw that before. That's a convenient time for that to rear its head.
That's true.
Again, I loved it. That's not a criticism, but just to your point. And then as he runs through the walls, instead of him just beaming through the walls, he's punching holes through them. But they're getting smaller and smaller. That was totally worth the visual gag for me to have that happen. That was delightful.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. That was just out of the blue, but you're right.
Yeah,
it was really fun.
Yeah. So I liked that. I liked the callbacks to the other powers. I liked the social drama, the family drama of him trying to figure out how to be a better father and manage all the household responsibilities and bond with his daughter and all that. I liked the social drama between he and his wife as to sort of who's the man of the house, who's going to bring home the bacon, who gets to be the hero and who has to stay home with the kids. Thought that was all very good. My only gripe is I wish they would have been a little more integrated. Most of the movie felt very much like, we're going to do this thing. Okay, now go back to this part of the movie. And there wasn't a lot of, enmeshing between the two. Didn't feel very natural until much later on.
Because again, like in Incredibles 1, when the family gets reunited, again, before that, when the family gets reunited on the island, it's kind of similar to this movie where like it's Bob's adventure and then it's everybody else, back home. Okay. Yeah. And then when they all get together on the island, then it's like you said, it's all integrated and it culminates in a great third act. I'm with you too. Like by the time they all get together, there's only like 5 minutes to go in the third act. Like I just thought, yeah, I'm with you. It happened a little bit too late. So maybe that's why the third act didn't last as long or wasn't as, I guess, engaging as part one.
That's definitely why. You didn't feel it as much because they're not fighting crime as a family for very long. It's much more truncated because they spend so long rescuing the parents, which I get, and the needs of the movie demanded it. I don't want the movie to be 10 minutes longer. I'm fine with it, but yeah, you come out with a different feeling from this one than the first one, which I think is fair for the sequel. I think it can be its own thing and be a little bit different, and I don't have to feel exactly the same way that I felt coming out of one. So I still like it. Not quite as much as the first one, but I do still like it. I'm going to give this movie an 8.5 out of 10.
Everybody stop the presses. Because I'm also giving it an 8.5.
Whoa! Bing, 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 bing.
That's right.
It's happened. It's finally happened.
It's happened. We broke the internet. We can just stop right now. No, I agree that you don't have to have the same feeling, but I do think that, in a superhero movie, the third act is supposed to be like, where all hell breaks loose and all the stops are put out. And I just felt this one was a little still too contained and it wasn't as they didn't reach as high as they did with Incredibles 1. The only other tiny gripe I have is that kind of like in the first one where we kind of knew who the villain was going to be because we saw the flashback with the kid. You kind of knew it was either going to be, the brother or the sister was the villain. Like it was a little bit too obvious as to, okay, which one of them is it though? Or there could be a team up situation, but we do know it's probably one of these two characters.
Yeah, I thought they made it pretty clear it was going to be the sister.
I would have liked it if they had like a villain that was so unexpected, like the old government agent. What if he was the villain? He was doing all this so that supers would have to come back and there's a spotlight. That would have been also a good story, and also I would not have seen that coming as much. So there's your pitch, Incredibles 3 storytellers.
Nice. I presume their response to that would be kids movie, Colin. Kids movie.
It's
okay if you see it coming. It's a kids movie.
These movies are not just kids movies. They're smart. Like you said, they're politically engaging apparently now. They can kind of teach you about the law, and they have socially conscious villains that actually have a point of view.
Yes. They do have that, but do not learn anything about the law from this movie, kids. Read a textbook.
That's the lesson.
With that very good advice, Thank you very much for joining us for another episode of Inside Voices First Takes. I have been Adam Rubin. He's been Colin Binnig. We do hope you'll join us next week for our next film. And until then, good night.
Incredibles 3!